Hi, Justin FM here, and today I'd like to share with you 3 ways that Justin's web design is different than your typical web developer. Okay, so let's start with updates. You already are probably aware how important it is to keep your website up to date. And with most web developers, this means you either have to pay them to make updates and wait for them to make updates, or you're using a rather complicated content management system like WordPress to make your own updates. Don't get me wrong, I have nothing against WordPress. I've used it for hundreds of websites, including some of my sites, and it's a perfectly useful tool. However, I did find that for many business owners, it wasn't intuitive enough, it wasn't easy enough for them to make updates themselves. So with my system, I build your website and then you have control over it. You can go in there and make your own changes. For example, you can click on text and edit the text. When you click on the text, it comes up with a little editor, kind of like a little mini version of Word, or you click on an image and it brings up a box where you can upload a new image or replace the image or crop the image, all kinds of stuff. So the drag and drop editor makes life a whole lot easier for you. You don't have to figure that out on your own either. I provide video training. This is like you're looking over my shoulder while I explain how to do things. The other thing that's different about my video training is that if you get stuck on something, if I haven't explained it well enough in a video, I'll just record a new video that shows you how to do it. I should mention here, I know not everybody likes to do their own updates, and some people would rather pay to have it done regardless. If that's you, if you'd rather not make your own updates, you should know that we have the services in place in order to make those updates for you, and it's inexpensive and it's fast. The same system that makes it easy for you to make updates makes it easy for us to make updates, and therefore the cost and time involved is very minimal. Speaking of reasonable pricing, that's another area where I do things quite a bit differently. If you've done any shopping for a website, you probably are aware of how unusual it is for a web developer to list prices on his or her website. Instead, you'll find the request a free quote form. Press them on this, try and get a ballpark range, and you'll find out that they're expensive, and that's why they don't want to give the price out up front. Don't get me wrong, I understand why they do this. I don't hold it against them. It's a piece of common business wisdom that it's easier to work with a few clients that you can charge a lot of money versus a lot of clients that you can only charge a little money. And so most web developers have that mindset that they want to have a few big projects throughout the year. The bigger the project, the better. And they aren't concerned with helping a sheer volume of people. In contrast, I exclusively work with really small businesses, mom and pop type operations. And budget is always a big part of the equation. That doesn't mean that I'm trying to be the low cost provider, the lowest price on the block. However, I try and offer the most value for the money that you invest. And the upfront pricing makes it so that you don't need to go through this proposal/sales process just to find out if you can afford to work with me. And now I'll share the most important difference between my approach and that of a typical web developer. It's a difference in mindset that is so fundamental, it affects virtually every other aspect of my business. Most developers are project-oriented. Your website is a project, and once it's done, you might never hear from that developer again. I know that sounds like I'm being hyperbolic, but I can't tell you the number of times I've had a frustrated business owner call me and tell me that his or her web developer has seemingly dropped off the face of the planet. In fact, I come up well in Google under Justin and web design. So I've gotten customers because they had a web developer they couldn't track down who happened to be named Justin. And I am named Justin, and they find me instead. You see, I want to be your trusted advisor. I'm looking to build long-term business relationships, not one and done projects. This is why I include maintenance as part of each web design package. This is a vital component to a long-term business strategy. To understand why, it's useful to know how the process generally ends up working. Maybe you've been through this. I've seen this cycle very often. You'll have the website built and you'll be happy with it to start out with. The web developer who has a project mindset will have built that website, made it look good. They're happy with it at the end. You're happy with it at the end of the project when it's complete. And you slowly become less and less happy with your website. Sometimes it happens instantly. You get hacked and then you're unhappy with the website. Or you're just unhappy with the website for some reason. It's becoming old, it's become dated, it's not working in some fashion or another. And then you have someone else rebuild the website. Sometimes you have the same developer rebuild it. Most of the time people have someone new do it. And the cycle just continues. 2 years later, you do the same thing over and over again. You're basically every 2 or 3 years, you're paying to have a whole new website rebuilt. Instead, the way that I have it set up is with maintenance, ongoing maintenance, a small amount that you invest every month or every year. And this is what allows us to keep your website running well. Really, it's not enough for your website to work well today, right when we're done with the website. It all works well, it looks good. The goal is to have your website work every day, every month, every year. And that's what the maintenance does, is it makes it so that we can devote time to that. I started the maintenance program a few years ago when it became apparent that even the most basic websites for small businesses needed to be dynamic and have dynamic features that just couldn't readily be done with HTML, building just plain HTML websites, which is what I was building at the time for small businesses. And HTML doesn't require as much maintenance, almost none really. At that point I started using WordPress. Today this is a common tool that most web developers use. I think something like 60% of all websites are built in WordPress. And it's an incredible tool that you can use to build all kinds of different unique websites. It's interesting, it started out as just a blog platform for making blogs, and it has morphed into this amazing tool that allows you to build all kinds of stuff. It brought down into the reach of non-coders the ability to build really advanced sites. The biggest drawback to WordPress is the sheer amount of maintenance that's required to keep it secure and up to date. It's open source software, so that means that when new patches come out, security updates and all of that, then the hackers get them at the same time we get them. It's also really popular and a lot of people don't keep it up to date. Those things make it really profitable to learn how to hack WordPress. It's already become a little niche market where there's several providers that just help people with hacked WordPress sites, and we're just going to see that happen more and more. Ultimately, I found that WordPress just isn't the right tool for most small business websites. It's easy to develop in, and it's easy to build websites in. However, it's overkill for basic sites. It's kind of like driving a nail into a 2x4 using a sledgehammer. Not only is that overkill, but also a hammer would actually work better. My hammer, when it comes to building websites, is a drag and drop editor. This is an enterprise solution that I've implemented because it's much better suited for the needs of your small business owners. I use this tool for most of my new websites because it makes the sites easier to maintain and easier to build. This makes it so that both the ongoing costs and the initial costs can be lower. That said, the main reason that I made the switch from WordPress to these sites has to do with performance. For example, page speed is a big factor nowadays. Google is really putting a lot of emphasis on page speed. And while you can make a WordPress site load really quickly, I figured out how to do it. It requires a whole lot of extra steps, and the extra steps tend to have effects on the rest of the functionality of the website. It's just a big mess. It makes it much more difficult to maintain a website in a way that also makes it perform really well. Additionally, this editor makes it much easier for you to make your own changes on your website. While WordPress has been touted as a tool to do that specifically, I find that customers are challenged by how hard it is to make updates with WordPress. Did you notice I kind of snuck in another difference? Most web developers use WordPress and I don't. It's also really rare for even a WordPress developer to offer ongoing maintenance. This makes perfect sense when you consider one other factor. It's actually considerably easier to build a beautiful WordPress site than it is to maintain that same site. So it's easy to understand how someone with a project mindset wouldn't offer ongoing maintenance. Okay, so that covers the three most important differences between my business and a typical web developer. To recap, the differences were how easy it is for you to make changes to your website, my upfront pricing, as well as the most important difference, my commitment to a long-term business relationship with you. These three distinctions aren't going to feel important to everyone, nor would I ever claim to be the best fit for every single business. That said, if you like what you've heard, please give me a call and we'll find out if I can be of service to you. I look forward to hearing from you.